And now it's time for Windy City Sports Talk. And your host, Ryan Young.
Hello, Chicago. Welcome to this live Tuesday, December the 20th edition of Windy City Sports Talk. I'm Ryan Young. For the next half hour, going to recap and preview everything going on in the world of Chicago sports. You want to follow me on Twitter. It's at ringside_rep. Of course, we got some recapping. Bulls last night played, and they actually played well. We'll get into that in a little bit. Actually, we'll start off with that. Bulls last night getting a nice victory over the Detroit Pistons at the United Center, which obviously you heard me yesterday very upset about what the Bulls have, the way they played against the Milwaukee Bucks for 2 games. It was embarrassing. Jimmy Butler called out the team. A lot of people are going, what's going to happen now? Well, it ended up being a great game for the Bulls. Didn't get much chance to watch it, but I know Rajon Rondo had a tremendous game. Let's take a look here at the stats as the Bulls win 113-82. You kind of had that feeling that possibly there was a chance that they possibly could have came out and played this way. Because, I mean, if they're not going to answer the bell to their best player coming out and winning, then, or to coming out and calling the team out and pretty much saying we suck, then I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that this team was going to have any chance of having a possibility of winning to the point of being a playoff team. They answered back. Jimmy Butler played 30 minutes, 19 points. Taj Gibson, 19 minutes, 16 points. Robin Lopez, everyone was in double digits last night. Robin Lopez, 25 minutes and 14 points. Dwayne Wade, 22 minutes and 13 points. Rajon Rondo, 10 points in 28 minutes. McDermott, 13 and 24. And Mirotic, 13 and 21. Also, Felicio, Grant, Denzel Valentine, they're all able to get points on the board. Everyone that was pretty much active, except Zipser, Portis, and Cannon, they all had minutes but no points. So, I mean, just a game that right there that tells you this team came out and actually played. They were able to answer. I mean, I told you yesterday, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to see this team come out and play, because now you got the front office people thinking, oh, look, our team's back. And now we don't have to do anything, and the heat will be off of us. No, it's not. This team still, I mean, you win one game, let's see what they can be able to do. It just seems like everyone in the Eastern Conference goes out there, plays okay for about 2 games, then gets their ass kicked for about 3 or 4 games, and then that's it. So now you got to think what's going to happen next with this team. And I mean, that is a great start. The Bulls, I believe, will be, I'm not sure what their next game is. I believe they're home again. They are home Wednesday against Washington, and they're home Friday, or no, they're on the road Friday in Charlotte before the Christmas game on Sunday. Play Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So they're on like this Monday, Wednesday, Friday kick. So I think it should be, again, Washington, a struggling team. So the Bulls have some quote-unquote winnable games coming up that can get them kind of back to trying to be a decent team. Now, it's going to be tough in San Antonio, even though the Bulls beat them in San Antonio. You know Greg Popovich is going to be like, yo, bolster this shit down and let's get it done. I think that's what they're going to do. And, I mean, Detroit, a winnable game that they just did. Washington's going to be winnable. Charlotte's kind of up in the air on Friday. That'll be right before the Christmas break, even though they, like I said, they play on Christmas. So this team did play fairly well, and you got to be content with that. The defense looked good. Let's take a look and see what Detroit did. Tobias Harris, former Milwaukee Bucks, 10 points in 26 minutes. John Lure, 16 points in 20 minutes. Reggie Jackson, apparently a lot of people not too happy with him in Detroit. He had 23 minutes, 7 points. He had 2 field goals made. There was some hubbubaloo out of Detroit today. This was a quote from general manager and head coach Stan Van Gundy. Team meeting my ass. This stuff means nothing. It's what you do on the court. Talking's easy. So he's a disgusting performance, he said. So, I mean, they faced a team last night that was in the same boat that they are in now. A team that just seems like they're off the rails, and you're not sure when they're going to get back on. Bulls were able to do it. Like I continue to say, this is also, I mean, it's if you cannot get into the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, you are a dreadful team. And like I said, the Bulls had an advantage over Detroit. Now look at it. They were almost tied with each other. I mean, it's, like I said, a game separates. I mean, it's really early on in the season, but one game pretty much. Cleveland's won Toronto's 2 a game out. Then Boston's 5.5 out at the 3 spot. Remember that. 4, 5, 6, 7. Bulls are 7 right now. 8, 9. Between the 9 and 3 seed, a 1.5 differential. A 2.5 game differential from, Detroit fell out of it after 1 loss. So, obviously there's a lot of things going on. Ahead of them is New York and Milwaukee. I think, honestly, if the Bulls are on their game, they're better than the Knicks, who are kind of falling apart. Derrick Rose has back spasms, which is the beginning of the end of the season for him. So, if you're a suit tailor company in New York City, you better jump on it. You can make some money off them the rest of this year. And the Bucks, I don't think they're as good as their shot. I think they played 2 tremendous games against the Bulls. They dominated them. But I think in a series, I think the Bulls will be able to take the Bucks. They're currently 13-12. Bulls 14-13. They're actually tied percentage, or no, they're 1 percentage point behind the Bucks. So, obviously a lot of things can happen, and the Knicks have lost 3 in a row, so they've fallen off. Charlotte up there, they face Charlotte on Friday, and they're only a half game behind them. So, literally, by Christmas, the Bulls could be the 3rd seed. Now, that is nothing to be excited about, because the Eastern Conference is atrocious. The top 2 teams, 19-6 are the Cavs, 19-8 are Toronto. And I want Toronto to win by 1 game after Cleveland sitting all their guys and not even flying them to Memphis. And they lost that game. So if they go out there and lose, if they lose by 1 game in the Eastern Conference this year, then if them 2 teams meet in the Eastern Conference Finals and have to play a Game 7, it will have to be in Toronto. And the game everyone's going to make a big deal about is the one in Memphis. So there. So I think that, obviously a long, long way to go. The playoffs don't start till the first week of April. But hey, after Christmas and New Year's, the weeks start flying by. Winter hopefully flies by. And you're already pitchers and catchers report in February. I've been ready for that. So yeah. So I believe I saw a countdown last week, 107 days till opening day. So we can get that countdown. It only took me 1 month to be over the not being sick of baseball. So I think now that'll be interesting to. I always miss baseball. And for you folks, we'll talk about that in a little bit, about programming notes coming up for the Cubs, which if you want to catch some of their games, every one of their wins of the playoffs, I guess I can tell you now, every one of their playoff wins in the regular or in the postseason going to be airing beginning Thursday night on Comcast Sports, and Game 1 against the San Francisco Giants. Game 2 would be fun. That was the one me and Papa Sean were at. I'd like to get a chance to actually be able to enjoy that one without a sign being in our way. But you get what you can get. But anyway, the Bulls win 113-82. It holds me off from a rant. They get ready to face the Wizards tomorrow at home, and then they get ready for a couple of games on the road over Christmas break. I know the Knicks play Christmas Day as well. So again, like I said, this whole thing can definitely be intriguing going into the new year with still obviously about 4 months to go. So the Bulls win 113-82, a great win. The Blackhawks are back on the ice tonight against the Ottawa Senators. There's possibly some friction, or not, I shouldn't say friction, but possibly some goalie controversy. Scott Darling doing a tremendous job, and eventually Corey Crawford's going to be coming back. We'll talk about that, talk about some other stories up. We started a little late. We are going to go the full 30-minute show. And we'll also talk, again, if you folks did not listen to yesterday's show, what the future of Windy City Sports Talk will be following this week. So we got about 21 minutes left, but let's catch you up to date. It's the Windy City Sports Minute right now. This is your Windy City Sports Minute for Tuesday, December the 20th. Yes, it is true, the Bulls finally got a victory as they defeat the Detroit Pistons last night of a final of 113-82. Bouncing back, Rajon Rondo had 14 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. Almost a double-double, close to a triple-double. Blackhawks will be back on the ice at the United Center tonight as they'll welcome in the Ottawa Senators. It'll be a 7:30 start on Comcast Sportsnet. Clay Buchholz of the Red Sox get traded to the Philadelphia Phillies today. Any more news, we'll let you know. That is your Windy City Sports Minute. Now back to Windy City Sports Talk. We're back here on Windy City Sports Talk. Glad you could join us. Of course, like we said, we got 20 minutes remaining left to go. Yesterday, of course, Monday Night Football was up and at 'em, and of course, it was a pretty big game. Hang on one second, folks. Usually I drink water during my Windy City Sports Minute, but didn't have time. But anyway, last night, the Monday night game, the big game for the Washington Redskins. Going into that game, they held with that tie, they held the second wild card spot. But unfortunately, they got handled by the defending NFC champions, who you believe neither team from the Super Bowl last year are going to even make the playoffs. Neither team looked like they're going to make it. So it's unfortunate, but you also like to see new teams. And Friday, because we will not be back on. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We will not be back on until after the first round of the playoffs. So Friday's show, I'm going to read off my playoff predictions and see how many I've read. I'm going to do my playoff predictions. I won't be able to do them on the air, but I will do them, and then we'll talk about them when we return Monday, January the 9th. We'll talk about that, get all that out there in a minute. But, of course, what a loss for the Redskins. That takes them out of the 8th spot, the second wild card. Ladies and gentlemen, the Green Bay Packers, if the playoffs started today, would have that second wild card. But they're not looking at that, because if the Green Bay Packers win out, if they win their 2 games, Minnesota on Saturday, and the following Sunday, which will probably be moved to the Sunday night game for the NFC North, if they win both them games, and that one against the Detroit Lions, they are your NFC North champions. And I mean, they have that drive right now, like they did in 2011 when they won the Super Bowl. Now, I hate saying that, because wouldn't that be so aggravating? Mom, you're here. Wouldn't that be aggravating? Cubs win the World Series, and then it would be overshadowed by the Packers winning the Super Bowl. Oh, that'd be so... That's exactly how it's going to happen, too. But there's some great teams in the NFC. But a lot of people are like, oh no, Dallas. Everyone was up in arms about them, and now all of a sudden they lose both games. If they run into the New York Giants, who they lost both regular season matchups against, you could probably see some troubles lurking for this team. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Right now, obviously, the Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is always the favorite if they have to play, of course, in the 12th man, which is CenturyLink Field in Seattle. That's the advantage, but they can't be the only 2 teams that have an opportunity to be the number 1 seed are the current number 1 seed, the Dallas Cowboys, and the second place team in that division, the New York Football Giants. But now, for that to be able to happen, the Giants have to win out their final 2 games, and the Cowboys have to lose their final 2 games. I don't think that's probably not a possibility of actually happening. So more or less, it'll be Dallas 1. Then it'll be Seattle 2. That will be your top 2 teams in the and then of course it looks like it'll be, I believe it's Atlanta. This is also a weird note. This is their last year of the Georgia Dome. They are going to move into a new stadium now. They're getting a new stadium just like the Atlanta Braves are. I don't think it's the same stadium. I don't think. Not like it really matters, but they're going to get a chance to close out the Georgia Dome on a positive note. That's exciting, but Matt Ryan, you never know. They can never win the big one either. And then, of course, the number 4 seed, it's going to be called the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's going to be a retractable roof. Will serve as the home of the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta, because again, coming up in so Atlanta's making some dough, because I believe, are they putting that stadium? No, that stadium's right next to the Georgia Dome. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they also have the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, that's why it has to be stadium, because Mercedes-Benz Superdome is what the New Orleans Saints play in. But again, that's another new stadium, which mark your calendars. If you're wrestling fans, I'm thinking this upcoming year, after this year, if I was talking to my sister today, there's a possibility that we could see WrestleMania in Minneapolis, which is actually out of the realm of possibility for them to get an opportunity to go. I'm looking at a live webcam right now of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is going to be the new stadium of the Atlanta Falcons. And, the seats aren't in. There's construction stuff all over. But it doesn't really need to be ready until next September. So I'm sure it's up. it's going, but it's still a lot of work to do, but that'll be interesting. I get sidetracked on this show. I'm sorry, folks. But, I mean, that's pretty big to be able to see that they're going to have a new stadium, but then in the number 4 seed is going to be the division winner of the NFC North, whether it's the Packers or the Lions. The Packers could possibly also move up to the 3 seed, maybe, if the Falcons can't hold their spot. Packers or Lions. Again, that's probably going to be the Sunday night game coming up in a couple of weeks on Sunday Night Football, that final week, which will be New Year's night. So that'll be fun. Because let's see here, the standings right here. The Atlanta Falcons are 9-5. Packers are 8-6. So if the Falcons, I guess, would lose, so the Falcons, if they probably win one more game, they'd probably hold that 3 seed. So that's the way that's looking. So of course, then you got the 5 seed, which will probably be the New York Football Giants, unless they win out and the Cowboys lose out. Then it would be the Cowboys, which I don't think so. I think everyone kind of has it set that it's going to be the Giants or the Cowboys that are going to win that number 1 seed, and then it's going to be the Giants to be able to get that the first wild card, and then that second wild card might possibly, it very well could be the Lions, or the Lions could drop out of that, because that could be a win or go home, because that's what NBC probably wants. They don't want the game where both teams are going to make it. So if the Lions lose that game, there's a possibility that they could be completely out, or it's winner gets the division, still has to play the next following week, and then the winner would have to get, and then the loser would get that second wild card. So I mean, it would be pointless because both teams would have to play. It would only be a matter of one team would be playing at home, one team would be playing on the road. So we'll see what happens there. But of course, a lot of interesting things. Again, it's a very interesting that there's so many spots still available in the NFL playoffs with 2 weeks left. It's great. And I think it's great for football, even though, everyone complained about the ratings being down early on in the season. But guess what? It bounced right back, and I think it was a presidential election and all that stuff. So I think if you look past all that stuff, then I think you're able to really, I think you got what you need. So a great job. That's the kind of the playoff report, and it's always going to be thrilling, no matter what you think. And again, the playoffs begin January 8th, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. But now there's other thing I talked about. I talked about on yesterday's show about how Ezekiel Elliott, the running back for the Dallas Cowboys, jumped into the Salvation Army Giant bowl or whatever it was, like the thing that when the people ring the bell. But anywho, they. There's a stat I got here. Where the heck is it? Ever since that happened, ever since that the Salvation Army was even brought up about this, the Salvation Army took in $182,000 in donations after Ezekiel Elliott's jump into the red kettle. That's the word. Up 61% from the same time last week. So good job, Ezekiel Elliott. Way to give Salvation Army. Maybe I'll get a raise. Huh, do you think I can get a raise? For $161,000. I usually get a raise every year, but that's near here or there. Anyway, but I think that's great. I mean, and then, of course, he was adding to it because, Salvation Army, being able to work there for a bunch of years, it's a non-profit organization, really. They get the donation. It's to help people out, but there's really no money actually there. Okay, so that's, except when you're a bigwig. You get everything handed to you. But I'm not going to get into that because I'll get in trouble. Okay, let's, also, like I was talking about, because I'm running out of things to talk about. Clay Buchholz, we heard it on the Windy City Sports Minute. He got traded today from the Boston Red Sox to the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies are still, I think, weeks or probably years away from possibly being a contender. So now they're able to shift that, and now that he goes to the Phillies add a starter, which I'm not off the top of my head. Now I'm not in baseball's mode anymore, so I'm not really sure who the Phillies have as starters. They have the young, I don't know. But anyway, but that's big for the Red Sox. Because of course, Clay Buchholz was going to be a big key to that rotation. Because now, of course, you have David Price. You obviously have the acquisition of Chris Sale. You have a very good rotation. And I think Clay Buchholz would have kind of, you also have the Cy Young Award winner Rick Porcello. So I think maybe Clay Buchholz was probably the odd man out in this situation, but I think it's still pretty shocking that he was unfortunately unable to be able to get the opportunity to be able to stay there, because I think it could be a magical year for Boston. And I think you're going to see a bunch of major markets in the race next year. When you look at, I think Cubs are obviously going to be in it. I think the Mets are going to be back in it with that great rotation. So you're going to see a lot of big markets, and then Boston. So I think MLB, Cleveland's going to be there also. They signed Chris, I can't think of his last name, but he played with the Toronto Blue Jays, and he got suspended for steroids a couple of years ago, which led him to not knocked him off his wagon. But we'll see what happens there. So again, that was the acquisition of the day for Major League Baseball. Still a lot of guys on the table for Major League Baseball. Mark Trumbo close. Apparently the Orioles are saying that deal's off the table. There's a report Theo Epstein, Cubs haven't seen the real Hayward. I hope we didn't see the real Hayward. He was embarrassing. But again, you can't really say anything because he did the quote-unquote speech that helped them win the World Series. Arcia and the Diamondbacks agreed to a deal. I believe that's a White Sox, former White Sox. Clayton Richard re-signed with the Padres. He was a former Cub. So still the big names are out on the table, so it should be interesting to see what they decide to do. And I think that's going to be tricky to see what they do. And then, of course, you got a lot of big free agents out there. You got Mark Trumbo, you got Edwin Encarnacion, you got a lot of big guys out there. And Jason Hamill's still out there. So, and then Trumbo, Encarnacion, and Batista are the big three. And maybe we'll see by the time we return from the holiday because if you really want to, the first step of not having signed a contract is the winter meetings. Then you get past Christmas and New Year's, and if you still don't have a team, you start to get a little worried because again, you really start pitchers and catchers report in early February. So then, when you don't have a job when pitchers and catchers report, you really start to kind of get desperate. So we'll see what happens there, but I'm sure them guys, and them are all very talented players, and I'm sure they're all going to find homes eventually down the line. So that is the MLB hot stove, I guess. I don't know if we'll ever have Scott Beatty on again. I figured not to have him on because it's not, baseball isn't as hot right now. It's football taking over, and of course with all the bowls coming up. So yeah, so that's that. So that's pretty much it with the baseball. We covered football. Congratulations to Pearl Jam and Journey, Tupac, all to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was announced earlier today. Journey, of course, Don't Stop Believin', which I believe was the theme when the White Sox won the World Series in 2005. That wasn't obviously the year that song was made, but it was the year the song was the song of Don't Stop Believin'. So yeah, so the White Sox, all that stuff, 2005. And, of course, like I said, Pearl Jam had a lot of great singles. Alive is my favorite, but I don't think that's that's Jason Hamill. That's one of the things I'm going to miss about Jason Hamill was his warm-up song. And then you have, and of course, Tupac, which I watched a thing, never heard one of his songs, but watched the documentary about him. It's crazy how that ended up. You never really know if he died or not. It's like Elvis. But, what can you do? So that's that also. So now we can talk about, we got about 6 minutes left in the show. We still got to preview Blackhawks Senators for tonight. Before we get there, I want to update you guys on the holiday schedule. Of course, after Friday, Ringside Report and Windy City Sports Talk will be off till Monday, January the 9th. So 2 full weeks off for the holidays. Ringside Report, like I said, will return Monday, January the 9th. Same will Windy City Sports Talk. But from there on, and I think it'll be this way. I'm not sure if this is going to be guaranteed forever, but just for a while, depends on see how I like the groove. Once a week, every Monday, a new episode. It'll be a 45-minute episode. Windy City Sports Talk Weekly. So my cat just got out the door. if anyone, and there's another door, so we can't get out. But one day we're gonna eventually just let that door go. But anyway, so Windy City Sports Talk Weekly or Windy City Sports Weekly. Not sure but it's going to be every Monday from 3 to 3:45. We'll recap and preview everything going on in the world in Chicago sports. It gives me I'm with 45 minutes. It gives me everything to recap, everything to preview, and then, of course, every Monday we'll have a new episode. It probably will not be live, so if you guys want to send us questions, concerns, anything like that, please do. I'll address them. So I might do a weekly poll question, stuff like that, so please feel free. So Monday, January 9th, after Friday's show, tomorrow will be our last probably live show ever. And then we'll have a pre-recorded show Thursday and Friday. And then, of course, we're off for 2 weeks to enjoy the holiday break, which will take us up till after Wild Card Weekend in football, which can't believe it. And then before you know it, it'll be February 5th, the Super Bowl in Dallas. So we got all that stuff. Deleting all the stuff off my phone to because usually when I see stuff I want to talk about on the show, I just screenshot it. Okay, so let's finally talk about the Blackhawks. They'll be back on the ice tonight at home again at the Madhouse against the Ottawa Senators. Hawks are 22-8-4. One of the best records. All of a sudden, the Columbus Blue Jackets have come out of nowhere. The Ottawa Senators come in at 18-11-3. Let's take a look at some of the big totals here for the Ottawa Senators. Turris, 12 goals, 9 assists. Stone, 10 goals, 16 assists. So them are pretty much the two guys that are Erik Karlsson, 7 goals, 23 assists. And their goalie, their most likely is Anderson, 12-6 in 19 appearances. For the Blackhawks, obviously they're big. Panarin's had a great year, 14 goals. Hossa 16, Anisimov 14. Them three, I mean, obviously when it's one game alone, and I have to write things down. Them are the three names. It seems like I'm always writing down Anisimov and Hossa, and Panarin. Them three seem to be great. And Patrick Kane also, 10 goals and 22 assists. Panic's been doing good. And, of course, then the goalie controversy. Scott Darling, he's 10-2 in 16 appearances. His save percentage, same thing as Corey Crawford. And Corey Crawford's had 20 games, 12-6. But he's, of course, still on IR. But it's great to also have Jonathan Toews back after being out for a while. So this Blackhawk team's starting to get fully healthy again. But then when you look at it, Scott Darling is filling the shoes to the point where you're like, okay, it's working. Like, it's okay, Corey, take your time. Scott Darling's doing the job. And that's tremendous. And hopefully we continue to get an opportunity to see that. But, of course, Corey Crawford, I mean, they just had this whole thing in New York with Henrik Lundqvist and Antti Raanta. So now you put that in there, that if you have a great second string or backup goalie, that's what makes this team that much more dominant and that much more one of the best teams in the NHL, and it should be fun to see where this team ends up. But when you have two very good goalies, really, what can go wrong? And like I said, he's playing extremely well as Scott Darling, and Ottawa, still a very good team. Like I said, they're 7 games over 500, so they're no pushover. And they're a team that has an opportunity to be able to win a lot of games. And the Blackhawks, I think, it's got to be tough for a team to come in. I think that's one of the loudest arenas, and I believe it was voted for one of the best. Some of the best sports teams, or one of the best sports teams in the NHL. I think just because of the arena, they've won 3 Stanley Cups. They've been able to do it all. And I think it'll be fun to see where this team goes. But right now, like I said, they're playing very well. First half is quickly coming to an end. And, of course, looking forward to seeing them back on the ice. I was corrected yesterday by my guy, Nick. They've been in 5 Winter Classics. They've been in... I thought they were in Detroit. I forgot, and I knew that. The first one originally at Wrigley Field. They played one at Soldier Field. They played one at, I forgot about I don't remember the one in Washington, D.C. at Nationals Park, which I believe was last year. Then, of course, this year, or the last year in Minnesota, that was last year. And then, of course, this year they're going to be in St. Louis at Busch Stadium. So, and of course, Montreal, Nick said, but... we'll see. Okay, everyone, we'll be back tomorrow live. We'll recap Blackhawks, Senators, preview Bulls, and the Wizards. Will be our final possible live show ever, so embrace it, enjoy it. I'll be here back at 3. Ryan Young's, and have a great day, Chicago.